Let's get right into it. Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Dog Oliveira. I'm not going to lie. Vinicius is one of my favorite fighters right now. He is bar none the most entertaining striker, I think, at least in that division and really in the UFC. Nobody can rival him when he's in his flow zone. Bautista is a formidable threat. You know, he's taken a big step up here, so it's not so much if Dog is ready or not. I do think skill for skill, he's better than Bautista. I think he's a much slicker striker. Bautista is just able to blend his skills well. Lately, though, we've seen kind of a decline in Bautista. I mean, Umar, the way he got ragdolled by Umar was somewhat embarrassing. I mean, we saw that Figgy, although a former champion, he's still 38 years old, much smaller than Umar. He was able to resist the grappling a lot easier than Bautista even was. So Vinicius can actually mix it up quite well. He had a tough loss to Ali Taleb, years ago, but he's not the same fighter. I mean, the knee against Sopai, his overall performances, Kyler Phillips had nothing for him, and that's a hard guy to nullify. Dog is extremely talented. He's a switch hitter. It says Bautista is as well, but I think Vinicius is a lot better at what he does. Bautista is also a bit chinny. We can't forget that. Sometimes Bautista can get cracked and hurt. I've honestly been going back and forth on this fight. For some reason, I thought Vinicius would be the shorter guy here, but he's not. He's also got an inch and a half of reach, which will matter because Vinicius he hits guys at the end of his shots, and I think that just the kicks and the blinding punches, Oliveira is just throwing a lot of fluff at you to land the hard shots, and he's so crafty in there. A lot of people are tired of his antics online and whatnot. I don't really care about that. I think a lot of it is mind games too. He's been calling Bautista out on Twitter saying he's going to destroy him, etc. I think this is an interesting matchup, and I do think Bautista might actually be able to clinch Dog and have his way until Dog catches him. I'm going to take Vinicius by third round TKO. I think he's going to catch him midway through the fight when Bautista might feel comfortable as a guy who has a lot more rounds and experience in the UFC. But Vinicius has this hunger, and his overall skill set is something I don't think you want to bet against. And if we're getting him for plus 135, plus 125, I'm sure it'll be closer to even money by the fight, I'm all over that. So Vinicius in the main event, I'm going to take the dog here. I just love this guy's style, man. It would just feel wrong to go against him. My head does tell me that Bautista can find a lot of ways to win, but it will be in the grappling. He doesn't want to stand with this guy for 5 rounds. Bautista can blend it well, but it's going to be a lot of clinching from Bautista, whereas Vinicius has shown a knack to actually escape off the fence pretty well, and his movement is just unrivaled. So the footwork, the hard shots, I think it'll pose a threat to Bautista. I'm also surprised that Vinicius is the same height as Mario. I thought that Vinicius might be a bit smaller, but it actually makes sense because Vinicius hits hard, and guys are a little surprised when they get hit by the guy. So we'll take Dog, and we'll take him by TKO there. All right, in the co-main event, I kind of like these smaller weight classes, in the prime spots that people are going to watch because I don't think they get enough attention. This is a good fight to an extent. Amir Albazi, Kyoji Horiguchi. Kyoji just looked fantastic in his last one. It was a pleasure seeing him fight. I was lucky enough to take him in that last one because I thought, maybe he's on an upswing. Maybe he's motivated even at his age. And he performed extremely well. I mean, he dominated. So Albazi, we haven't seen in a while. He's never been the most impressive guy, to be honest with you. I do think he has somewhat heavy hands for the division. They're the same height. Kyoji, though, 35. When you're approaching 36, 37, even 35 at flyweight, there's always question marks. But, I mean, from his last performance, the guy just looked incredible. So it kind of nullified my thinking that maybe Kyoji was having a resurgence in Japan, and that's it. No way. He looked great in the States, looked great in his last matchup. I've got to take him here. I mean, his all-around striking skill set is going to prevail. Albazi is going to be forced to wrestle here. Kyoji is not a guy you want to stand with. And Albazi's game is wrestling, but his volume and his pace, it wanes, The way he got lit up by Morono, I think it'll be that times 2 because Kyoji uses his kicks, his legs as well. It's going to be a barrage from Kyoji, a very confident pick here for me. is Kyoji Horiguchi. Probably to win by decision, but you never know. Albazi's taken a lot of damage. Kyoji's very experienced. I think Kyoji's the one guy who can really win the belt at his age. I mean, Joshua Van would be in some trouble if he fought Kyoji Horiguchi, just in my personal opinion. Van's got incredible pace, but Kyoji's an absolute sniper, and he can mix it up well, whereas Van is very one-dimensional. And anytime he's fought a specialist, like even against Ray Saruya, Joshua Van, people thought he looked good. I didn't think he looked that good. It seems like when he's stopping the takedowns, he can't really focus on his striking as much, whereas Kyoji can blend it extremely well, and the only thing that Van would have on him over 5 rounds would be the cardio. So I would love to see that matchup. I have a feeling we will see that matchup soon if Van doesn't lose the belt to Manel Kape or anyone else waiting in the wings. So Kyoji Horiguchi here, very confident play for me. Then we move on to some big guys. Jailton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev. Kuniev in the PFL was solid. I think the win against Fajeda was really good. It showed that he can out-wrestle most anyone in that heavyweight division, at least in the PFL. And the Curtis Blades, when people will look at and be like, well, he beat Blades. I mean, that's a pretty impressive win. The thing is, Curtis Blades was on his way to 10-8ing him in the first, almost finishing him. And then Curtis just showed like this lack of will, lack of cardio. He looked terrible in that fight. Some people will argue that Kuniev made him look terrible in the last 2 rounds of that fight. I disagree. I think Curtis Blades' durability has always been a question mark. This guy got knocked out by Derek Lewis, for F's sake. Kuniev is kind of a one-trick pony. I don't rate his striking. I don't think he's that good at all. And now he's going up against a guy in Jailton Almeida, who I kind of made the mistake against. I made the mistake of thinking that even a guy like Spivak would do good against Jailton, and he did. I could honestly see this fight playing out a lot like that, whereas maybe Rizvan has some luck throwing Almeida to the ground, but Almeida showed some power in his hands against Spivak, and Spivak's never had a great chin, but Kuniev isn't the most athletic heavyweight. Almeida has 3 inches of reach on him. It says that Kuniev is taller, but Almeida is much more athletic, and I think that Almeida, if he is going to push the pace in terms of the grappling, Kuniev's just going to gas at some point. I was not impressed with Kuniev against Blades. There were many moments he could have pushed the pace and maybe knocked Blades out. If you're thinking that Kuniev is better than I'm making it seem, then maybe you take Almeida just by decision, which I'm going to take anyway, but maybe you think it's one of Jailton's less impressive performances, which is a possibility if Kuniev is stopping the takedowns. I was just impressed with Jailton's power. It seems like he just has the heart and hunger to win. And he doesn't care how he wins. He'll make it boring, and I just don't think Kuniev, you just don't want to be on the ground with Almeida, and that's Kuniev's specialty, I should say. If he takes Almeida to the ground, he's going to be in constant danger of getting swept by a much more athletic guy with unlimited cardio. I mean, Almeida's cardio for the heavyweight division is probably his best weapon. He can go a hard 5 rounds. Before, his striking was very primitive. But now that he's evolving, I don't see any way for Kuniev to win. I left with so many bad tastes in my mouth after that Blades fight. Not only for Blades. Blades, I think, is just washed at this point. But just Kuniev not pushing the pace at all when he could have hurt Curtis. He could have put him away, I think, at some points. And Curtis just really wasn't showing much. And you can't forget that Almeida was completely dominating Curtis Blades with the wrestling early, which is what Curtis was doing to Kuniev early. So if Almeida can dominate the wrestling early on Kuniev, I think that's a problem. And I'm confident in Almeida, maybe not as much as a guy like I am with Horiguchi or something like that, but absolutely going to take Almeida here with some confidence. I know he's a solid favorite, but it doesn't matter to me. Kuniev's just not on that level. These PFL guys haven't really impressed me too much either way. So we'll take Almeida there, probably by decision. Michał Oleksiejczuk versus Marc-André Barriault. It's a little hard to see. Sorry, I was going for that neon aesthetic, and sometimes it interferes with the font. But you can see here Marc-André has slight height and no reach advantages. He's also the elder by 5 years. Michał has been in the UFC for so long, and he's only 30 years old. He is a slick southpaw. This guy's striking is so good. I mean, defensively, he might be a little shot. Michał has an underrated chin, though, and his only problem is when guys get him to the ground. Now, Marc-André is going to be shooting for his life in there. There is no doubt about that. Michał is not a guy you want to stand with. We've seen Marc-André's chin compromise. I mean, look at the Chidi fight, many other fights where he's gotten rocked too, even earlier in his career. He really only seems to beat guys by out-cardioing them. And, I mean, his technique has somewhat faltered. He does have power. That's not really what I'm worried about with Michał. With Michał, I'm worried about a guy who can ground him and sub him. And that's not really Barriault's game. The power bar is all about brawling, pushing guys up against the fence, clinching them, getting them to the ground. And maybe he'll have luck early, but I don't even see it. I think Oleksiejczuk blitzes him early. He's a tricky southpaw. Marc-André doesn't have luck with those types of guys. And this is probably, one of my most confident picks of the card. Michał Oleksiejczuk, first-round knockout. I don't see it playing out any other way. He should have been at middleweight his whole career. He's been dealing with bigger guys for most of his career. And I know his brother actually recently underwent some surgery for something going wrong with him. So hopefully that's all right, because he's a talented guy too. And I just really like Oleksiejczuk in this matchup just to get it done in the first round. There's no ifs, and, or buts about it. Michał by first-round knockout. Then we have Jean Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. This is an interesting matchup. Matsumoto was a guy I was very high on. And I'm not completely counting him out of this fight. He's 17-1. I feel like the one loss he took, he should have won. I mean, he should have won that Font fight. But then again, the last fight he fought, Miles Johns, that was a horrible robbery. Might have even been a worse robbery than the Font fight, even though they were both pretty bad. So it was kind of strange how that happened. That's been happening a lot lately. Well, you'll notice a guy who gets a robbery decision, and then the next fight he kind of, makes up for it, kind of like Volkov and Gane. Oddly enough, though, I still think that Matsumoto has a lot of potential, and he's a young guy too. So Farid, he's never lost. Farid is definitely he's become the better Basharat, and he's got tremendous grappling. And seeing what Miles Johns did to Matsumoto, I cannot see Matsumoto stopping a lot of the takedowns that Farid goes for. And it was just an eye-opening fight, I mean, Miles Johns, it was the performance of his career, but Farid will really expose Matsumoto, in those areas that we saw him deficient in that last one. And Farid's quite good at getting takedowns. He's also solid on the feet. He's very long. As you can see, he's 2 inches taller. He's going to have 3 inches of reach. So Matsumoto is kind of going from this prospect that the UFC was kind of building to a prospect that they're kind of like, well, let's see how good you really are, because Farid is a serious test. And I think he's just a higher level, higher caliber than Matsumoto at this point in time. So we're going to rock with Farid there by decision. And then Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. So this is an interesting fight. I noticed a lot of people on Tapology are actually taking Dustin Jacoby, but I think they're taking it because he's a name. Obviously, Jacoby has a lot of power. I think Julius Walker is more of an athlete than a fighter, and that might be exposed sooner or later. But Julius Walker, he's got an inch of height, 2 inches of reach, and he's got 11 years on Jacoby. So he's 11 years younger. I'm not sure of the odds in this one. I know Jacoby has a lot of experience, some deceptive knockout power. Julius Walker is shown to be pretty durable and tough. He's a big guy who also relies on the grappling, which is what I like on this fight. Another key metric here that you're not really going to see is the short notice for Dustin Jacoby. He is taking this fight on short notice. He's going to be the smaller guy. He's going to be the striker versus the grappler. So everything is telling me to take Julius Walker here. Even though Walker is the less experienced guy, I don't really care. He is, look at that takedown average, going for nearly 4 takedowns at that's insane. His accuracy is pretty solid. He's getting, 36%. I mean, it's almost 40%, landing a lot of takedowns for everyone he gets. He's also fought guys who are pretty good grapplers. Menafield turned into a pretty solid grappler. Cerqueira isn't good at all, but he took care of him pretty easily. I'm going to take Julius Walker here. I especially like the fact that he's not on short notice. He's the bigger guy. He's the better athlete, and he's 11 years younger. So I'm surprised to see so many people on Tapology taking Dustin Jacoby. But again, a lot of people will just kind of see the name and then just go off that. But I don't do that here. All right. And then I'm not going to be breaking down Daniil Donchenko versus Alex Morono. But if you do want to check that out, it's my 1 minute prediction. I only put out 1 minute predictions for fights that I'm extremely confident in terms of the result. So maybe check that out. Maybe give me a like. If you like what I'm doing here, subscribing is always welcome. I know I've floundered a few of the cards, but I have a good feeling. I always rebound, and if I'm putting out a 1 minute prediction, I'm going to give you some confident picks. So appreciate that. If you're here watching me, I do appreciate that. So check that out. And then we'll move on to the next fight, which is Bruna Brasil versus Ketlen Souza. I also see a lot of people on Bruna Brasil here. I'm not too impressed with Bruna Brasil's wins. I mean, she had a lot of issues early in her UFC career, not really being able to take a shot. She fell victim to Denise Gomez. And if you really look at her last couple wins, it's against a Molly McCann, who is just on the border of retirement. And then the Chinese fighter, I don't want to mispronounce her name, who was the doctor, who got that stellar knockout. Very experienced. China level is not high level in regards to the rest of the UFC. She was also the much bigger woman there. She'll have 3 inches of height here, and she'll also have 3.5 inches of reach. I don't think that matters with a girl like Ketlen. You have to understand that Ketlen is a dog. She's a marauder. I don't think Bruna Brasil does well with styles like that. Ketlen does want to keep it standing. I don't think Brazil's ground game is good enough to keep Ketlen off of her. I mean, if Brazil's not careful, Ketlen could knock her out. I mean, Souza is an absolute dog. She had a couple split decision losses. I don't know how it was a split decision loss to Angela Hill. I don't think she really deserved that to be a split. But Angie is just extremely experienced, had her luck dismantling a lot of green girls at the time. So my biggest thing here is the styles. And Ketlen, although the smaller girl, I just think she poses a ton of problems. She's also moving up in weight class, which will probably help her power a lot. Brasil is not a girl that I'm really fearful of on the ground or the feet. I don't think she has power on the feet. I don't think she's especially technical. I don't think she's good at grounding the fight. And if you're going to keep it standing with Ketlen, I mean, that's a problem. This girl can really fight. So we'll see how it goes, but, in this day and age, I think moving up for fighters is always better, always better than moving down. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but I'm going to take Ketlen here. I might even take her by TKO. I'm not impressed with Brasil at all, but we won't push her. We'll take Ketlen by decision, most likely. Then we move on. Said Nurmagomedov versus Javid Basharat. So both the Basharat bros are on this card. And if you want to kind of group them together, I don't even blame you. This is a close fight. It's a tough fight, and I've been thinking about who's going to win here. So Javid actually has an inch of height, but Said has an inch of reach. And I think that Said is a guy who really struggles with the wrestling. But Javid hasn't shown me much lately, and I don't think he's good at getting hit. That Ayman Zahabi fight opened my eyes to this guy, and it was embarrassing. That performance was terrible. Anytime he got hit hard, he was just backing up. He doesn't like to get cracked. Said can crack, too. He's unafraid to engage. He's only had problems with guys who can really grapple all 3 rounds. I think that Javid's just been exposed a little too many times lately for me to comfortably take him. It's not saying he can't win this one, because obviously he is going to be the better grappler slightly, but at what level? It's a very even fight. I think the decision is a given. I'm just, that's a hobby fight I'll never forget. You know what I mean? Javid was a massive favorite. He just really wasn't willing to take those shots well. And if Said is giving him hard boxing, that doesn't really make sense, but hard punches, hard kicks, and the boxing is prevailing here. And Said's got some lethal kicks, too, to the body, to the head. If Javid is taking those shots, the grappling is going to be nullified just by that. So I am going to take Said Nurmagomedov here. It's not an easy pick, but it feels right. Just there's too many things about Javid that are just questionable. And, I'm not grouping the Basharat bros on this card. So I'll take Said there by decision. Wang Cong versus Eduardo Mora. Wang Cong, Wang, whatever you call her, she has opened a massive favorite in each one of her fights, and it's honestly ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. In her defense, the one loss in the UFC she had was to Gabriela Fernandez, who isn't that talented of a fighter, but she had to get dropped to get grounded, right? I don't think Mora has that type of power in her hands or anything like that. Kong Wang is a southpaw, which can make things difficult as well. Mora's sole intention is getting the fight to the ground. I thought she looked unimpressive against Murphy. I thought she looked unimpressive against Gomez too. I think Mora's looked less and less impressive as she's kind of gained her UFC tenure. But regardless, this is a striker versus grappler matchup. I know Kong Wang has 100% takedown defense, but it's deceptive. I mean, her last couple fights, Ariane Lipsky, you could call her a grappler, but she's really a striker at her base. And I mean, it just feels uncomfortable with Kong Wang opening yet again 3-1 over Mora, who I think gets underrated a lot just because her performances aren't anything. They're nothing memorable, but she's an effective grappler when she needs to be. I mean, obviously the striking gap is huge on the feet. Mora cannot risk it. The good thing about Mora, she doesn't even want to risk it. She just wants to ground it ASAP. So classic striker versus grappler matchup. I do not think that Kong Wang should be this big a favorite against really anybody anymore, especially after we saw that Fernandez, you call it a fluke or whatever, but that performance was terrible. I'm going to take a risk on Mora here. I think that Wang's 100% takedown defense is, again, a bit misleading just based on the women she's fought. Gabriella wasn't able to ground her. She dropped her, but that's not a good look either. I think Mora will actually go for takedown. She's going to change that takedown defense metric. And I got to take her in a close fight. It's like, why not just take the grappler here? You know what I mean? Mora is a sophisticated jiu-jitsu fighter. And even if she's just able to clinch, you know what I mean? That's all she really needs to do. I think it's tough. I mean, it's tough because Mora is going to get beat up on the feet a bit. But I mean, she's a tough girl. I don't completely disregard her striking defense as well, which is solid. She's never really gotten beat up, you know. We're going to have to see. Again, striker versus grappler. I know that doesn't so much apply in this new era of MMA, but it's something that's kind of helped me make decisions for years now in the UFC, so we'll take Mora there. And then Muin Gafarov versus Jacob Wiklax. I know I'm mispronouncing that. Polish names are a bit tough, but Jacob is coming in as an even money, I shouldn't say favorite. He's a slight favorite. He's basically even money, though. He's 2 inches taller. He's got 4 inches of reach, which is interesting, but I was not impressed with Jacob. It was more so about being unimpressed with Patchy Mix, who is now gone from the UFC. So it's like, how much do we rate that performance? You know, it looked like Patchy Mix was just at the end of his rope. Terrible weight cut. Him and Tatiana Suarez, who knows what they've done to each other. Basically just had their careers kind of ruined together. So I don't know their training methods, their camps. I don't really care either, but Patchy's out of the UFC, and Jacob would probably be like a bigger favorite if Patchy was streaking, but he fought a guy who was just really at the end of his rope. And Muin, I think, is really on the other end of that spectrum, whereas he has looked better and better with each fight. I mean, that Rinya Nakamura win was fantastic. He dropped him early, kept the pace slow, how he likes it. We've also seen Gafarov in the past be able to use his wrestling. I mean, he's had some tough losses to Henheliger, you know, but he's not that same guy. It's good to know that he can rely on the wrestling if he needs to, and I think Gafarov's a solid striker too. So seeing Gafarov as a slight dog, although this is even money, so it's like, just pick your poison here, you know, choose your side. It's probably going all three. Wiklax is a tough guy. If you think Wiklax can put the pressure and the pace on him, do it. I just think that Gafarov is a master at slowing the fight down to his pace. He obviously hits pretty hard. He's great at nullifying solid wrestlers, which Nakamura really is. And, I don't have much faith in Wiklax. I mean, it was a good debut. He took over late, though. You know, Patchy was dominating the grappling, and Patchy's weight cut kind of led him to just gas. But I'm going to take Muin to mix it up on him and win this fight. Usually guys get a bit inflated when they have a somewhat solid performance over a guy who was thought to be really good, a la Jacob versus Patchy. But, yeah, we're going to take Gafarov there. It just feels right. And then, last but not least, the first fight of the night, last fight of my video, Claudia Segula versus Priscila Cachoeira. Priscilla is a woman who's a bit hard to read. You know, impressive performance against Josie Ann, but she thrives in that type of matchup. A girl is just going to come at her and brawl with her, and she's going to knock you out if you just try to do that. You know, Segula's not that type of fighter. She's a ground fighter, and I am a little bit conflicted here, but the 10-year age gap, along with Priscilla showing some wear, like Jocelyn Edwards knocking her out in the first round, is just all bad. It kind of tells me that her damage threshold isn't there. And Segula, although Priscilla usually has like the height and the length advantages here, when she doesn't, she struggles a bit. So Segula is also going to have 4 inches of reach on her, an inch of height, and although her grappling isn't that great, I just feel like she's going to be bigger, slightly stronger than Priscilla. Priscilla loves to be the bigger girl in there. She loves to be the bully who can knock you out. It's not going to happen with Segula. She's the bigger girl. I think she gets Priscilla down and just beats her up on the ground, probably chokes her out at some point. I don't have much faith in Segula, but in this matchup, it feels like, I don't know. I feel like this matchup would have been a lot tougher if Priscilla was a little younger, a little more in her prime. Because Priscilla always poses just an awkward test. I mean, she's not a great fighter, but a tough fighter, a resilient fighter, and she hits hard. But I'm definitely going to take Segula here. I think it's just time. I mean, the last performance from Cachoeira showed her she's kind of at the end of her rope. So that's really all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Shoot me a like if you liked it. Hopefully, my UFC 325 picks come through well. And good luck, everybody.